Prices are falling, interest rates are rising. Is now a good time to buy a house? Stay tuned for more. Hey real estate friends, what's going on? It's Mike Gold here with RE/MAX Alliance. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's blog post where we're going to highlight, is now a good time for you to be buying a house? So if you've been on the sidelines for buying a home, you might be thinking that you missed the boat. One, because interest rates are now significantly higher than they were at their lowest point during the early portions of 2022. And also two, you might be thinking with the rapid appreciation of home prices that it is better for you just to consider staying where you're at and renting, or in the home that you're currently at. But I want you to think about a couple of different things before you completely dismiss as to whether or not now is a good time for you to be buying or selling a home. What I've gone ahead and did was to provide an example of what we're seeing in the current marketplace in the greater Denver Boulder real estate area. I'm making an assumption that the sales price of the home is $600,000, that the appraised value is also $600,000, that someone is making a down payment of 10%. Now, not factoring in private mortgage insurance and just doing a straight line principal and interest calculation of where one can get an interest rate for today at 5.5% versus one at 3.25% in February of 2022. As you can see, your payment on a 5.5 ARM is about $3,000, whereas at 3.25 it's about $2,400. A significant amount of savings, almost $716 a month. But here is where the math comes into play, where one needs to think beyond just their monthly payment. So when you were buying that home in February of 2022, or even in the early portions of 2021, or throughout the whole entire year of 2021, you were having to do a lot of other items in which to be able to secure that home. First, was your contract even able to be accepted? Because there was such a shortage of the amount of available inventory, buyers weren't really able to buy their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, maybe even their 10th choice of home in which that they were going to buy. So there was the whole letdown effect. And in order to buy a house, you had to be able to do what is known as an appraisal gap or an appraisal protection for the seller. So in the event the home didn't appraise at your contracted price, you would bridge the difference. And a lot of times, the dollar amount that most folks were having to come up with was roughly about 10%. So that needs to be forecasted into the equation. So that's why we're adding an additional $10,000 as far as the out-of-pocket expense to the buyer. Now we can also say that this number was rolled into the amount of inspection objection items that you couldn't have asked the seller to do at that point in time. And so the buyer is having to cover those particular items. So the out-of-pocket expense for a buyer today, in today's marketplace, because they are able to negotiate and have choices, is to buy a contract normally. And if the property doesn't appraise, renegotiate the contract price, or just be able to buy it at the appraised value instead of having to bridge the difference. So again, the $60,000 starts to come into play. Now, for most home buyers in this particular scenario, it would take them almost 7 years before they start to realize a savings by having that lower interest rate on their mortgage. Guess what? The average person remains in their house for a period of 5 to 7 years, according to the most recent NAR statistic. And if that number gets to be a little bit longer because you have a super low interest rate, yeah, you'll start saving money after year 7. But for most folks, that's not necessarily the case. The other item that I want to make sure that you're aware of is that in today's marketplace, you are not just having to hold your normal 30-year fixed or 15-year mortgage. There are adjustable rate mortgages that have durations and terms that can be 7 to 10 years. There are also other loan programs called a 3-2-1 or a 2-1 buy down program where the interest rate is substantially lower in year 1, jumps up an additional rate in year 2, and then has its permanent rate after year 3. Same thing with a 2-1 buy down where that interest rate is going to be lower in year 1 than it is year 2. And even better, there is an all-in-one mortgage option that I'll provide in the link below that you can take a look at, which allows you to use your home like a bank does with assets coming into their account. For more information on this, definitely take a look at the blog post that we're going to be posting a little bit later on this week. So again, if you're thinking that you missed the boat for buying a home in today's marketplace, you might want to think again and to understand the full picture for what buying a home is for you when taking in consideration if you've got a home to sell, which you can do in today's marketplace. If you're thinking about renting, not only do we need to weigh the amount of money in which that you're paying for a down payment, but also the amount of money that you would have had to forego if you were buying a home in the past. Again, Mike Gold with RE/MAX Alliance. I hope I have the opportunity of solving any real estate problems or questions that you might have. And until next time, I hope to hear from you.